Ships don't sink because of the water which surrounds them. Ships sink because of the water which gets inside of them. The term resilience describes the ability of people being surrounded by difficult circumstances to stay strong and even grow in character in spite of all these challenges. And that's what this video is about. We are at the Havel, which is a body of water which surrounds the western part of the city of Berlin. And not far from here, when I was a student, we had a boat, a dinghy. And one day I would come by with a friend who owned a startup back then. He has now become a very successful entrepreneur. And he brought two of his business partners. And the four of us would get on the boat and we were sailing against the wind out here. And as we got out of the bay area, the wind really picked up strongly. And we were going this direction at a pretty high speed. Then a very strong squall occurred and the whole boat tripped over and the four of us were swimming in the water. Resiliere, that's a Latin word, and this word means to bounce back, to push back. And I admire my parents. They grew up during war times in World War II. I remember how my father he wrote down his memories a few years ago. And he described as a 4-year-old, they would flee from Prussia. He was sitting in a transport wagon at minus 20 degrees Celsius. People around him would die. And he would see how dead bodies were buried in the snow. My mother's father died in World War II. He never came back from Russia. She flew from Silesia to Bavaria, and she grew up in very difficult circumstances. Her mother was a traitor trying to provide for 3 children. They lived for years in an emergency shelter. In spite of all these difficulties, which could have traumatized them as children for a lifetime, to use the picture again, the water which was surrounding them and pressing against them did not manage to permanently get inside of them, which I find very amazing. My father became an engineer and he invented many very impressive things. And took a lot of responsibility on his job. My mother became a teacher, eventually a school principal, and she took a lot of responsibility in society in many ways. So what makes it possible that people, in spite of difficult circumstances, manage to stay strong and even grow? So the four of us, we were floating in the water, but surprisingly the boat did not sink. And the reason for that is that inside the boat there were floating bodies which kept the boat from sinking. So what produces resilience in people? I could do a talk about the 5 points about resilience right now, but I won't. You can Google this term resilience and you're going to find a lot of very insightful things. I do believe that there is a much more personal and insightful way to learn about resilience. In Proverbs chapter 1, wisdom is described as a person, and it says that this person can be found in all the streets, in all the open places. She's clearly to be seen. And I think what this refers to is the fact that if we look closely at the people around us concerning resilience, we will be able to identify people who have proven resilience. Why don't you look for people like that this week and maybe initiate a talk with them? Maybe you want to talk to a colleague and ask him, hey, how do you do this? Being surrounded by narcissistic, cynical people, maybe at your workplace, to, keep the sense of joy and help me understand, how do you do this? And maybe learn from him. Or maybe you have a relative or an acquaintance around you who had this really severe experience in his life which could have pulled him down for a long time, but he learned to overcome and move on. Ships don't sink because of the water which surrounds them. Ships sink because of the water which gets inside of them. Think about this week and have a great start.